It happened.
It'll be great.
It works.
It works. It'll be fine.
Everyone's audio is
Yeah.
off.
Right.
The whole episode.
Right.
Lucas is like, so
Like-
let's talk about this, and then 5 minutes later, okay, now let's move on, and then my audio. So here's my opinion.
Like while I'm asking the next
Yeah.
question. It'll be okay. Oh, glad I'm not editing it. Anyways, right. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Viewers Club. My name is Lucas.
I'm Megan.
I'm Tess.
And I'm James.
What? James? What is this? Where did Osama go?
He's in an alternate dimension.
He's dead.
He's dead. So we killed Osama, and now we have James. Which
Yeah, I
I
took
mean,
over.
That Phineas and
I think-
Ferb song really got to us, you know?
yeah.
So
Yeah, I
we,
mean, I just
we had to kill
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
You guys still don't know
I-
what it is, but we had to kill him.
right.
It
I
happens.
can
There's
let a
different
lot of
tastes.
things go, but just not that. Like that was one of those things. I'm not like that. Just don't have a way.
Crossed the line.
Yeah. So this is our first. I think this is the first time we ever had a guest star on the Viewers
Wow,
Club.
that's actually okay. That's awesome.
Yes.
That
so
is.
it's James
I'm privileged.
from James and the Frames, a
and the
fantastic
Frames.
podcast which you should listen to
Mhm.
always
Oh, thanks, guys.
and forever. He's going to be joining us for today's episode, where we are going to do a season 1 and done. Is it season 1 and done or 1 or done?
Or done.
Well, the thing is that well, I mean, it could be or done or and done. You never know.
Are you done
Because
with it?
there's a second season.
We never know.
in
Season 1
development.
and / or done.
Grammar, for who
First
knows?
season. It's grammar. Who knows what the heck's going on there?
That makes
It's
sense.
of the season 1 of The Haunting of Hill House, a
Yes.
Netflix show, which I will give a brief spoiler-free synopsis, and then give a spoiler alert because there will be many of them in this episode. So, The Haunting of Hill House is loosely based on Shirley Jackson's 1959 novel of the same name. The Haunting of Hill House follows the story of the Crane family, who, in the summer of 1992, moved into the old and crumbling manor estate of Hill House. The narrative is split between two timelines, one set in the past that details the family's experience while living in the house, and the other set in the present where the kids are all grown up but still haunted by what happened in that house. And I'd like to give a quick shout out to the showrunners of the series, Mike Flanagan, Meredith Averill, Justin Falvey, and Daryl
Geniuses.
Frank. Did amazing. You guys are fantastic. I think your hard work and dedication is very apparent in the finished product. You should be very proud of yourselves, which I'm sure you are. You guys, round of applause. Round of
Amazing.
we applause.
Genius.
Amazing job, guys. Pyrus. So, the story itself is very unique, not only in the premise, but in the way that it's told as well. Because we're always switching between the timelines, so we don't really have a full picture of what's happening until the very end. And it's also a very interesting twist of the genre, because it is horror, but there's also so much sadness and so much drama.
It's a very sad show too.
It's it has a lot of gut-wrenching moments. So there's kind of a balance between those two genres. So my first question is, what did you guys in general think of the story, as well as the way that it was told? What did you like about it, and was there anything you didn't like about it? Let's start with our guest, James. Let's start with-
Thank you. Okay.
Start with
Yeah. All right. Well, first of all, the show is just absolutely incredible. I think it's the best thing that, besides House of Cards and Mindhunter, the best thing that Netflix has done, like, originally, like a Netflix original, like, stuff like that. I think it's one of the best shows to have come out of Netflix. As you said, Mike Flanagan did such a good job. I love that director. I've followed him. I've seen his earlier films, Hush, which I did a small review on, and I also saw another early film of his, and I'm super hyped for Doctor Sleep because I haven't seen it yet, but what I've seen in this show is that he knows how to operate the camera really well, and some of the camera movements in the show and the cinematography is just beautiful, but some of the camera movements and framing is very Kubrick-esque.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see what he does in Doctor Sleep. But the show all around, I mean, it's that good to the point where I feel like I can't watch any other show for a while. Like, or I'll think like the other shows I watch will be like bad or something because of how good the show is. But it was done really well, really, really, really well. There's stuff that, well, I'm guessing we'll get into that later when we discuss like the ending and stuff like that. But there's a couple things that didn't resonate too well with me. But other than that, this is just an incredible show. It's on Netflix right now. It's great for anybody to see who's a fan of horror or who wants a good, compelling story that has horror elements. Like if you hate horror movies, like if you're like, oh, well, this isn't like I get scared and this is just not for me. Yeah, I mean, there's elements that do that. There's parts of this series that's like that, but underneath, like you were talking about, it's not just about horror. Like there's another genre that comes into play with it that's actually really, really interesting, and it's very well executed and very well handled. So that's what I think. I think it's pretty good.
Definitely. Tessa, how about you? What is your general review?
Yeah, so I'm definitely on board with pretty much everything that James just said. Honestly, it's so well done, and like the whole like screenwriting about it's a beautiful story, and I couldn't help but just binge watch the entire thing. So good.
Same.
So good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
You guys are leaving me without things to say. I'm like, wow, this is word for word my bullet points.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Finally, Megan, what's your general review? Because
I remember telling you that I was going to have a very different opinion than probably everybody else did, and it still kind of stands to fact. So, overall, it's really well done. There's a lot of love and a lot that went into it, and it's beautiful, you know. However, I think that the ending has kind of... definitely was not my favorite thing, the ending of this. And I think that might have been the thing that kind of put this on a little shaky ground for me as whether or not I would want to go see another season of a story like this. It's just...
Right.
Because an ending can really make how you feel, because it's
Absolutely.
the last impact that you have of it. And for me, the ending was just really...
a little lacking.
It was lacking. It was kind of predictable. For a story that has a lot of unpredictable moments and stuff, it really started to slip at the end for me, where I was able to kind of just see where things were going, and it was just... I don't know. It puts me on shaky ground with the entire story overall. But as far as like visuals and acting and things of that nature, it was fantastic. Absolutely love it just for those aspects of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited for controversy.
So good.
Disagreements. This is going to be great. No, but
That'd be nice.
I do get what you mean. Because I watched this on the recommendation of my cousin. She had seen it before I had, and she was like, you have to watch this. And I watched it, and I definitely think that my favorite part of the series is the beginning, rather than the end. But I get what you meant by kind of the knowing, like, okay, this is probably what happened. It kind of reminded me of season 1 of American Horror Story.
I was going to bring that up as well. Yeah, Murder House.
Yeah, I would see similarities with American Horror Story and this show, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched a little bit actually of season 1, and I saw like a lot of people are comparing it to like Horror House. Is that the right name?
Murder House,
there
I
was a
think.
season of American.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where it's like...
there was
But personally, I think this is better than season 1 of American Horror Story.
Yes.
But I get what you mean by it's kind of like following the same path. Although it's interesting because the more I thought about the ending, which we'll explore in detail later on, the more I thought about the ending, the more I actually liked it and the more I saw where it was going. And James, I definitely agree that it's one of the best originals that Netflix has made, like, ever. As far as what they have on the market right now, it's definitely up there for me. And I love the story. I loved the focus on, like, the family and the characters. I'm a sucker for characters. Like, that's I am a sucker for anything related to
characters in the show.
Yeah. And I think it's cool because you get the terrifying experience of living in that house, but it's kind of made almost more scary because you're viewing it through the eyes of kids, and you see it through the lens of childhood trauma, which in an interview with Mike Flanagan, he said a lot of his stuff, he likes to focus on that. He likes to focus on how stuff as kids, the stuff that you experience as a kid can really affect you later on down the road. I really liked that. And I love I love more and more the 2 timeline structure. I've been seeing it more recently.
Yeah, that's good. It is really well handled here. Definitely.
It is, yeah. Because it's not something that fits for every story.
Right.
It's not something that's going to fit all the time. But I think it fit perfectly, I think, for this story in the way that it was told. And this is the spoiler alert, by the way. I forgot to do that. Spoilers. Spoilers. I think at the very end, when all of the siblings are in the red room and Nellie, the ghost of Nellie's talking to them, and she's explaining time to them, and how she's like, I used to think it was cause and effect, like dominoes, but it's like confetti sprinkled all over your life.
Confetti.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that like literally fits with the structure of the story. It's like confetti. It's all split up. And I was like, dear God, why is this a masterpiece? Stop. And, beside also that for being a great analogy for life and memories. So I could gush on that forever. But the other kind of thing with the story that ties into the next question is I love that you can see through the way that it's told, you can very clearly see how the things that happen in the house affect not only the kids and the dad, and it has a hand in shaping their personality, their ideals, and their occupation in the present, almost everything. Whether it's like Steve and Shirley and Theo with their jobs, how it's kind of all involved in either death or trauma. Like there's still elements of that in their life. And then the twins, like literally all of their issues are because of that. Like literally. Like I love how you can see that, and it's interesting because I don't think the characters themselves realize that at times, and that's very telling for like real life, because I don't think sometimes you do things, because subconsciously, because of something you experience, and you don't realize it until something overtly obvious happens, or something leads you to that realization, and that realization in itself can be terrifying. And that I'm going to bring that up later, specifically with Shirley's arc, because I really liked her story. But kind of going into the characters and their arc, I think they did a lot of interesting things with each of the Cranes and making them seem like individual people, as well as I loved their dynamic with the family. So I just wanted to ask, who was your favorite character and why? And was there a character whose arc that you really loved, regardless of whether it was your favorite character or not? Was there just somebody that you thought, wow, I really like how all that came full circle? We'll go in reverse order. Megan?
It's hard to pick a specific character that I love, but I think it's because her character arc is probably my favorite, is the mother.
Oh, yeah?
I really loved how they created this extremely caring person and then turned her into the most toxic person in the house.
Right.
Because I feel like...
It's really tragic.
Yeah, it was... She has such a tragic story, and she genuinely meant well. Her brain had just kind of lost it, you know? And I really like the comparison of her with the father, Hugh, right?
Yeah.
I liked their comparisons because at first it seems like Dad's gonna be the bad guy through the entire situation because his kids keep talking like smack about him, and then they're like, Mom was always so perfect, and then there's a whole other story that opens up behind it. It's like, yeah, Mom loved you and cared about you, but she kind of lost it real quick. And
yeah.
her story was very interesting, and watching her become this like kind of really open, caring, creative, free spirit to being trapped in the cage, the symbolic cage of the house, you know, where she just would never be able to escape. And she never did. It was really interesting. All she had was like her dream house in mind for her and her family. And then the one thing, she would never have that. And it was really interesting to watch her evolve and change, because at first, from the kids' perspectives, you're like, Mom's a little like in the clouds, you know, she's a little she's a little off, but there's nothing wrong with her. And then you see it from the perspective of the dad, and you're like, no, there is something wrong with her.
Screwdriver.
So yeah, that was I think she is my favorite character, and I think she has one of my favorite arcs throughout the story.
Definitely. I really like that. I like that it plays off of... I really like it whenever something... when they take a very relatable trait or a very understandable trait, and then they kind of twist it into something that's horrifying. Because I think what they did with Olivia is... It's like they played on that, you know, you would do anything to protect your children. And you would do anything to keep them safe. And then it, like, took that love to just this completely different area. And it makes you feel... it's like an uncomfortable, like...
To save them, sense, I have to kill them.
You know... you, like, can understand, but it's horrifying to see and understand. It's a whole thing. Yeah. And, I like... It's cool, because you can kind of see... Yeah, I'll get into that later. I was like, should I explain? No, that'll be the ending. So, Tessa, favorite character or character arc or anything like that?
Okay. Well, watching this series, it kind of hit home, like very close to home in a different way, because I know you and... Megan already know that, like, I lived in a haunted house for a part of my life.
Wow.
And which is, like, pretty much identical to the house that they use. And I have 3 other siblings. So
don't go back to it.
So there's 2 girls and 2 boys in our family. And it was just like...
Oh no!
Oh my god!
Wow!
It was like crazy.
Like,
crazy.
Did they study my family?
It was really interesting watching and seeing like the different siblings and how like unique they are from one another and how they all interact. It was like, really interesting and cool to watch. Yeah, I mean, Megan already stole my favorite character arc.
Same wavelength.
But she did an amazing job at explaining it, so I won't bother. My next favorite character, though, I don't know, it's between Theo. I think I kind of relate to Theo because she's, like, a really strong, like, empath, but I really also like Eleanor and that whole... I don't know if I can say it yet. But that whole
if it's
spoiler,
about the episode, yeah.
that whole spoiler with her.
Oh my gosh.
Mind blowing.
Episode 5 was just it broke me. That episode was just terrifying. Yeah. That's one of the most terrifying things I've seen on like film, media, TV that ending was just shook me.
Yes.
It really shook me. Yeah. Like that was a big twist and a big shock.
Yeah.
I'm glad we will this is great. I have a question about like your favorite episode, so I am sure we are going to about all that. But yeah, I get what you mean with Theo, and that's really I love Theo and Nellie as well. And I loved that Theo was like she was an empath, but she was also like emotionally closed off or wanted to be, and so there was like a contrast with her core, and then Nellie. I'll get to Nellie in a moment. James, how about you?
Well, I mean, I really liked. Okay, so there's 2 arcs here. There's one that I really really liked, and one that I liked but not that I enjoyed watching. The one I liked but didn't enjoy watching was clearly Eleanor's whole arc and what happened to her.
Right.
Like that was pretty like messed up and like I'm even uncomfortable talking about it. Like I looked up the scene on YouTube. I just couldn't watch the scene. I just hid down in the comments looking at people's reactions because it's a really good scene.
Right.
But her arc's very tragic and it's very well done, and it's wrapped up very nicely at the end, I thought, with that final moment that she shares with her siblings and that whole thing, and she kind of gets some closure when Hugh goes back with his wife and they have that whole area. But the other 2 characters whose arcs I really liked were, first of all, Steven's arc was because it's probably been seen before of someone not believing something and then by the end of the story they're like, now I believe. Like that's a common thing that happens, and I just kind of like it when stuff like that like is executed really well, because sometimes it's just like, okay, so you show this character one thing, like, nah, I don't believe you. You show this character one thing, nah, I don't believe you.
Right.
In this, it's kind of like the character lives through it. Like he sees things that he thinks, okay, it's a mental illness, blah blah blah.
Right.
And as the series progresses, you see that, well, it's not a mental illness. There's actually some creepy mofos roaming around your house and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so. Yeah, his arc I really liked, and especially how his dad kind of gave him the keys. Like the one person who didn't trust him, that was like the ultimate, like, I forgive you moment. Was when he like handed off, like, this is your responsibility now. Like the house is yours. Like you take care of this. And I felt really fulfilled by that, and by his ending monologue, writing good things about the house instead of like the stuff that he wrote before. Was really well done. I really liked it's the character names. One thing I will say is that the character names they're sometimes a bit hard to remember because there's a lot. I actually did like Theo's arc too a lot. I liked how she liked that whole dynamic of her touching things and finding things out and touching Nellie's dead body and feeling nothing, and then feeling nothing for like a couple episodes. Like Kate Siegel, who by the way is Mike Flanagan's wife. She acts like really well. She's always been great in all the stuff that I've seen from her.
Yes.
So she's really great. But the one more character I really liked was, of course, the father, played by Hugh Crane. He's probably not played by Hugh Crane. Played by oh god,
Hugh Crane played by Hugh Crane.
We are mixing stuff up. Hugh Crane played by Hugh Crane. Played by Henry Thomas, who's such a good actor. I mean, well, of course, his most famous role is E.T., but like he's just such a good actor, and it was good to see him like in a leading role again. Yeah, and I really liked his arc, and also the casting choices are really well done, but we'll talk about that later. But his arc is like the dad like keeping like his kids safe, but not in the same way that the mother kept her kids safe. Like he's like kind of like the not the moral opposite, but like the opposite, has the opposite motivation of keeping a secret kept away or keeping his kids safe for some reason. And I really liked his self-sacrifice at the end. Like I was pretty sure at the end when he was going to do a self-sacrifice. I was bracing myself for it, but it still hit pretty hard when it happened.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed those character arcs. I didn't even say 1. I said 3. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. You guys pretty much said like everything that I could hope to say, and it's every character I thought had a very they had a very good arc and a very good ending that gave. I really like that when even if you can kind of see where it's going, there's still the question of execution, and it can still make you feel something, and it can still and I really thought each of the characters had a really they hit home with where they ended or where they where their arcs were leading, and had it. I love it. But Nellie and Theo were definitely my favorite characters, and for all the reasons you said, and I love that Nellie kind of had what I like to call the Ned Stark effect, where they die early on, but their character still has a massive impact on the story, and they don't really stop developing. And I love that, because she's a character that right off the bat, at the end of the first episode, you know that she's dead, and then it's like it never seemed her. You still learn so much about her through the rest of the series, and she still has a hand in everything. And I love that.
Really tragic.
Yeah, it's such a tragedy, and it's such. I love that we think she's a ghost, and we think she she is, but we think that she might be under the control of the house, or that she might be haunting them. And then we find out that she's actually protecting them, and that she's actually trying to shield them from her own mother, who's, again, trying to kill them to keep them safe forever. So there's it's
some nice rat poison tea for y'all.
Right. It's such, it's such a sad contrast that, she's like, the fact that she has to do that, and the fact that, the mom, thinks that she's protecting them by doing this, even though, he was like, we're not protecting them. They're dying. They're literally in there dying.
How is this protecting them? Yeah.
Right. It was, her whole story is wrapped in tragedy, and it's so good.
Yeah.
But interesting, the character that I did want to bring up, she's not my favorite character, and I don't think she's many people's favorite character.
I know who you're going to bring up. Yeah, I don't think she's meant to be anyone's favorite character, really.
No, she's not. No, she's not, and she definitely, there's a lot of hate in the fandom. But I really liked Shirley's arc. I really liked where she ended up, because, of course, there's the hypocrisy where it's like, okay, you cheated on your husband, but you're mad at him for doing that. But in the very last episode, when they were having the hallucinations, or when they were trapped in those visions, when she was looking at her own dead body in the funeral, and her husband said, but you don't want to look. That's you written all over. Shirley doesn't want to look. And that moment resonated with me and had such power. I don't know, I was watching that and I was like, holy crap, that literally ties back to her whole life. I could explain, she's a mortician, because when she's talking with the kids, she's like, it gives you a chance to cover all that up with a better picture. She doesn't want to look at the truth, because it's just, I love how that tied in with literally everything in her whole life. She doesn't want to see what's actually happening, and she just felt like a character that, even though we don't really like what she does, she's still very, very real and very, very fleshed out. You can see you can still understand what she's doing, and at that very final moment, like that whole arc completed everything for me. Where I don't know why I really like scenes. I really, really like scenes where characters like get confronted by their own demons or like their own flaws. I really like when that happens in shows, because it like that's like a make or break moment. That really defines, you know, how they react to that. And, you know, it's just it's so cool when you see that, because I think at the moment the audience realizes that that's, you know, her whole life she doesn't want to look. She also, I think, has a moment of clarity where she's like, holy shit. Where she's like, I just got called out by this house, and they are right. Like that was one of those moments that I thought was terrifying, because I think in this show especially, there's more of an emphasis on terror rather than horror, and I really like that, because I'd seen that floating around, and I didn't quite know what that meant, but it was like the idea that horror is the like after, that's like the reaction that's after that, where you're, you know, upset. That's the upset after something happens, and the terror is the build up to it,
the anticipation.
And yes, and that is, I think,
the tension is really well realized in this show.
Crap.
There are a lot of really tense sequences that just had me like wide-eyed looking up that were really good. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, I almost said Flake Manigan.
Mike
Flanagan said that it's about something that's much more profound than being afraid, and I think that's a great way to describe how I felt, because it was. I mean, yeah, it's pretty darn scary, but if you mix that tragedy and sadness together with that scary elements and terror and all what you were talking about, that makes it really good. That makes it like a lot more profound than being afraid. Like there's repercussions. Like there's a lot more things that are underneath the surface rather than just simple ghosts and look at this is terrifying. Like there's actually a meaning.
It's more,
most of the ghosts in the show.
It's more of a mind game rather than a ghost story, is what I kind of take away from it. It's like how much of this is actually in the head of the individual rather than what the whole group is seeing. You know what I mean?
Right, because they're all kind of,
because there are like moments where it's an individual's headspace, and then there are moments where everybody is experiencing it. So like the individual headspace is the individual rooms that the Red Room creates for them, which by the way was the best,
such a great twist,
the best reveal ever.
Oh my gosh.
And I rewatched a few of the scenes of them. I'm like, it is the exact same room.
That freaking, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so that's like the individual's headspace and what the individual is experiencing as a part for like what the whole group is experiencing. Goes to one of my favorite camera motion / scenes, was that whole scene when Nellie is little and she vanishes. And everyone's running around the house, like, where is she?
Was it episode 6?
I think so, yeah. And
that's a really good one take.
Good God,
that was really well done.
Yeah, it's more of like the house is playing a mind game with the people rather than the ghosts are playing with the people. Because if you look at it, the ghosts don't do anything. Yeah. The ghosts aren't really hurting
they're
anybody.
Just trapped there.
They're just trapped there.
Yeah, they just let the people do it themselves.
So the house is like, oh, I'm gonna play with these people's minds like individually, and then that's what gets them. Is what I really enjoyed about it, because in traditional ghost stories, the ghost is the one who does the killing or the hurting or something, you know, voluntarily or involuntarily. You know, it's the ghost is doing it, but in this case, the ghosts are just a side effect of what the house is doing. So
they're kind of driving them insane and letting them do all the damage themselves. That's horrifying itself, because they're basically they don't have to interact with the physical world. They're like manipulating and taking advantage of these basic human emotions, or these basic emotions of the characters,
especially of the mother in her emotional state. Like that
right.
was like the prime suspect. Like if I could maybe take like a comparison. Have you guys ever seen Hereditary?
I've seen bits of it. Yeah. I haven't finished it yet.
I've seen bits of it.
Okay, well,
yeah.
But have you gotten past like the big part, Megan?
No.
Yeah. I know. Oh, okay.
Okay, we're not gonna say anything, but I saw like some comparisons of the main character in Hereditary to the mother in the show, being that she's kind of manipulated in a way by a supernatural force, like while she's in this emotional state. Like family drama and horror has always been a good mix, and Hill House does it really well.
Right. I mean,
and Hereditary does it good too, yeah. But it's really well executed.
Absolutely. And the biggest horror, I guess, in real life, aside from the supernatural, is, I think, losing a loved one. Like, that's one of the biggest things that you could think of that would be a horrifying thing to happen, or a tragedy to happen. And so when horror plays on that added with everything else, you're like, God. You're like, oh no. But yeah, well, while we're on the subject of kind of these moments that are that brought this tension, and moments that were terrifying or horrifying, what was for you, what was the biggest, because we talked about the Red Room, what were some of the moments that were like the biggest shocking moments? What were the moments that were the biggest terrifying moments that really just stuck with you as horrifying? And then any of you guys can answer, but there's quite a few, because I agree with Megan that the Red Room was completely out of the blue, and even like looking back on it, when you're like, they all have the same window shape, they all have the same, like,
they do, that's true. Like, I noticed that.
There's so much foreshadowing, and I love that too. I love, because that in itself shows a well thought out project, when you can foreshadow it, because that means that you thought ahead and you've been like, I want this to happen, but I'm gonna hint
that's
at
a nice
it
parallel
here.
I got that one.
I see what you did there.
Wink. You guys go first, Megan and Tessa. You guys have the floor, because I have quite a bit.
I mean,
you go, Tessa. I need to organize.
Okay. I mean, there's definitely a handful of them. Obviously, Bentnick lady was terrifying, and realizing who that was the entire time.
Gosh.
Oh my gosh, there's this one scene where the two sisters were having this like really long argument in the car ride.
Yeah.
And they're like going at it. I was so invested, and like they made great points.
Right.
When I tell you, I jumped, and I don't jump during movies. Oh my god!
Oh my gosh!
Oh yeah!
That was probably the best use of a jump scare I've seen in a while.
I usually don't forgive
really
movies or TV shows for using jump scares, because they're always so cheesily placed, or they're always so predictably placed. This one was not. I was
not expecting
legit. I was watching this at night. It was dark in my room, and I was so invested in this argument. I'm like, yeah, they're oh my god.
I totally, like, so many horror films. So many of you're absolutely right. They do that as a replacement for actually creating terror, or actually creating horror. And this was great, not only because of its placement, and because you're like, holy crap, I wasn't expecting that, but because it's like, it also makes sense, because like Nellie was trying to get them to shut up and stop arguing.
Shut up, guys. Stop
Honestly, if I was a sister, that's how I would do it.
Right. Shut up! And then it turns out that's what they needed in order to like get that closure with Theo, like revealing that, which was also...
what a monologue. That was a really well acted scene by Kate Siegel. That was a really well acted scene. I like that a lot.
So invested.
Yeah.
And then
that was scary,
The other moment that was absolutely terrifying to me, for some reason, was the whole the clock guy ghost.
Yes.
He was there the entire time.
Yes.
And
Which
no
guy?
one
Oh
saw
my
him.
gosh.
The clock.
The clock
guy.
ghost.
Yeah, the ghost.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
And they didn't even realize it, and he was just
Oh, I'm
there.
so glad you brought that up.
He just
Chilling.
chilling,
That-
fixing the clock.
that
Just
was-
chilling
Because
right in
that
front
was
of everyone.
right?
that was like probably one of the most spine-chilling moments
Yeah.
of the series, because
There was no clock guy.
and I yes, that line where you're like, what? Because
What?
it's like, you know they're trying to convince, Steven that this stuff is real, and you're like, there's nothing that we can do unless he's seen it, and then Hugh's like, oh no buddy, you don't even know what I know. And
Yeah.
just that
You
dump
have
when
no
you're like,
idea, my
Oh
friend.
oh my gosh. And then him freaking saying, I never built you kids a treehouse. Because you've experienced it with all these
Right.
kids. You've, accepted their reality as reality. And then you're like, what is real?
Yeah.
What is going on?
What is reality?
That,
It's real
turns
terror.
everything on its... I'm so
Yeah.
glad you brought that up, because that
Right.
was one of the most tense moments.
Mhm.
Yeah, but definitely. Oh my gosh, and like you were saying with the bent neck lady, that was probably one of the biggest shocks in TV history in a very long time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest twists ever. I could not get over that for a while, and I know
Yeah.
I'm still not
Yeah,
over it.
I don't know if I am.
no.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. Real quick, because this is before I get to Megan and James. There was one moment that I just wanted to get across that kind of solidified that I was going to be invested in the series and that I knew it was going to be horrifying. Is the very end of the first episode when Steven's talking to Nellie and she's not responding, and then he's
Yeah.
talking to his dad. She's like, Nell's dead, and then she turns around. I was standing because I was pacing around. I was
God.
pacing
Oh, no.
around the room because I was so nervous. And when Nellie's freaking face popped in the screen and just started to deteriorate, I couldn't move. I was immobile. I've
Petrifying
never been,
moment, yeah.
I've
That was,
never been immobilized by fear before, but that got
was
me.
really well done.
I was like,
That was
I gotta-
really, really well done.
Mhm.
I totally
I gotta
agree
watch
with you on
this
that one.
series.
That was
Yeah.
that was a very nice. That did set the tone very, very nicely. I mean, even the opening scene for the whole show, that was
yeah.
vague enough and scary enough.
You're like,
but that really just set the story in motion. I totally
Mhm.
agree with you on that one.
Mhm.
That was a
Yeah.
really good scene.
were there? Do you guys have any moments that were?
Oh
popping
yeah.
out?
Oh yeah. Listen, this entire show has a bunch of moments in it where you're just like,
Good God.
So to set the scene of why this is probably one of my favorite moments
Mhm.
ever is so I am somebody who does not sleep at night. I can stay awake till 2 or 3 in the morning,
Same.
So it's not weird for me to watch something that's either horror related or anything. I watched Silence of the Lambs at midnight, and then I'm like,
Oh, that's
okay,
fun.
we're good. Yeah, it's really fun to think
Fun.
Hannibal Lecter is out there.
Right. This is great.
So I was like, I can watch Haunting of Hill House at 1 in the morning and not get freaked out. So the
Flexing.
opening scene where they're where the dad's running through the house trying to get his kids out. You're not even seeing the
Oh,
ghosts. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's just
Right.
he's just panicked to get his kids in the car and away. Probably one of the most terrifying things I've seen. And then you see the other stories of that night
Right.
take place, and then it becomes even more terrifying when you realize what's happening. The mother is actively hunting her children down at that point,
Right.
Yeah.
And the
Oh,
dad
right.
can only save so many of them because he's got 5
Mm.
kids, so he can only go after so many of them at a time,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that was probably the most terrifying, and that's when I stopped watching it. I was like, I'm not gonna watch this the rest of the night. I'm gonna let's watch something else. And then the scene that kind of led up to that, and again it leads to the scenes are connected, is the mom with the 3 kids in the red door room, having a tea party, and then the little girl that isn't even hers, you know, that poor little girl, by the way, like, oh gosh, that was so, that was sad in its own right, but like, that scene was probably the most terrifying, because her kids are very confused, but also excited, but also, like, there's this little girl who's dying right next to them, you know, it was...
It's okay, she's waking up.
And then the final two I have revolve around the mother. Again, she's literally my favorite character in it, especially when you see her whole story, is
freaking
the scene...
Spy Kids mom.
Yeah.
Amazing.
The mom... She has so many great moments, but I think one of the more powerful / terrifying ones was when she was looking in the vanity mirror that Steven had made for her, and then she sees her dead babies behind her.
God. Mm-hmm.
That was an extremely powerful moment. I could not shake that for a while. It's still, I still visually can see it. It's so good. And then the final moment I have comes from the what year is she from? The 20s or something? She's dressed like a flapper, you know? The ghost the ghost woman who
Poppy.
Yeah, Poppy. And she talks to Olivia the entire time, you know? She's the only interaction that they do have. She's
very creepy monologue.
Her monologue is the most terrifying thing. It was so well done. She did it so great. She's a terrifying character.
Accent was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That entire like monologue where she's talking about her dead baby and like saving them and like planting the seeds in her head. It was so well done. It was so terrifying. So that's probably one of my top favorite moments of the entire series was just Poppy in general. Definitely. She's just like, so I'm going to tell you a little story. Hello. I'm going to plant an idea in your head. Like...
Right. She even shifts between like her ghostly appearance and her normal appearance. Like sometimes like unexpectedly, like for like just like a frame or for like 2 seconds, you'll just see her ghostly appearance. And then it'll cut back to a frontal shot of someone else, and it'll cut back to her, and it'll be totally fine. Like it's like that, it's like shifty appearance.
Yeah.
Like I really like that.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Those are like the big moments for me, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of hang on. Pause. I'm gonna check my battery level. See how we're going. It actually may be time for a battery change. Guys.
Battery change.
Change the music. Okay, so I'm just gonna stop recording real quick and
intermission.
I'm just gonna put the Monty Python intermission in now.
Right.
Nice.
All right. Okay, so but my favorite moments, I have a lot of favorite moments. I'm really gonna try and whittle it down, but I could talk about the different meanings for hours on end. I mean, there's a lot of really good parallels in the show, and sometimes they're really creepy parallels. Like one parallel I really liked was I think it was Nell at her funeral. Like, Luke is, like, crouching next to her grave, and she just, like, appears above him. And she says the same line that young Nell says to Luke when he's, like, dead in the last episode. And I thought that was a really nice, like, foreshadow / callback. But, those things I really like. But in terms of big scares, most terrifying scene for me was Nell's death and that whole review. It's stuck with me. It's just so incredibly terrifying. It's there's so many layers to it. Besides, so let's get the main thing out of the way first. First of all, she dies like going absolutely insane, seeing visions of her family members, how she wants them to be, and her dead husband, and a bunch of her dead husband who died because of the bent neck lady. That was really insane. It's really...
There's, like, no way that was an aneurysm.
Yeah,
I don't believe that.
Yeah, it's really tragic, and you see, like, the shot of her, like, going throughout the house, like, by herself, and it's really sad. And that's, like, just the beginning of the scene. Like, then she actually, like, in her very last moments of her life, she realizes, like, oh, I've been tricked. Oh, damn. And then she just hangs herself, and you, like, see her hang herself, and you're like, okay, she hung herself. Oh, that's so sad. But no, the creepiest thing I've ever seen happens. The rope kind of just like extends, and she just goes down, and then she just breaks her neck again. And it's just this terrible crack, and the sound design was really good there. I really like that sound effect. And then it's revealed, okay,
right.
she was the person that, okay, you saw this lady in the hallway, and then you're like, okay, maybe it was just like her watching her journey or something. But then she goes down again, and it's like, crack, again. And you're back to like another scene of her actually, like, she's still alive, right? Her neck is broken, like her bone is protruding.
Right.
Like, it's really creepy imagery. And just as she goes through each level, she sees like the bent neck lady and what she's done, and like especially when she gets to the level where she sees her husband's death. That's just shocking. She just starts saying, she starts going further and further below, like no, like she freaks out. And at the final level, of course, she knows that, well, she's actually the bent neck lady, and it's that reveal. And she's like, no, like it's just this gut-wrenching moment. And it terrified me because, so I'm really scared of, like, the portrayal of death in movies and, like, what happens, like, after death. Like, there's a couple, or the process of getting to death. Like, Synecdoche, New York is a great example of that. Like, just going through life and just getting, like, more and more depressed. That's a whole nother story. But what this does so well is that, you know how they say your life flashes before your eyes when you die? She goes through different levels of very important moments of her life while at the same time realizing that she's the person or the entity that actually tormented, like, herself. Like, that thing, like, putting that together is really, really hard to do. And it's it's just shocking. It's gut-wrenching, and I really just did not enjoy that at all. Like, I like good horror stuff. Like, I like good horror stuff. But, like, when I don't enjoy something because it's scary, like, that's when I know that it's executed really, really well. But that's just one of my favorites. And I will say one more, which is actually like my close second, is the tall man that appears, I think, in episode 2. Yeah. Or 3. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, my heart dropped when I saw that figure. That was really, really scary. I mean, now that I look back and it's like, okay, it's just some guy looking for his hat. Like, leave him alone. But
like, give him back the hat.
Can I have my hat?
The poor guy.
If you want your hat, take it. I don't want it anymore.
Give it to me.
Yeah.
But that's actually the scene with the tall man demonstrates the genius of how Mike Flanagan handles horror and terror and intention. If you notice, like, for most of the ghost scenes, there's actually no music at all. Like, it gets really silent.
I love that.
And it's very, very still, and you can just kind of feel, like, the atmosphere in the room. Like, the air is, like, literally, like, so thick, like, it comes out of the screen. I don't know what that analogy was, but basically what...
We get it.
Yes.
Okay. That was very scary. Like, to see him, like, floating off the ground with, like, that little cane thump. Like, it's when you're a little kid and you think you hear something outside of your door, and you're just like, okay, what the hell was that? And it was actually, like, your cat or something. Like, okay, that was fine.
Right.
But Luke actually gets up and looks in the hallway, and you see, like, this big, like, dark figure... And
floating down the hall.
I was like, well, who's that? Hello, who are you? I was looking at that, and I was just terrified. And the way I like this subversion of the classic horror trope where someone just, like, holds their breath in and the monster goes out of the room, and then they're like, oh, it's away, and then it cuts to the next day. Here, that doesn't happen.
Right.
Here, the main character actually runs out of breath because you can't hold your breath for that long, even if you're, like, 7. He just goes, bah! And then goes, like, kind of just, like, turns around, like, were you here this whole time, bud? You owe me an apology for stealing my hat.
Yo, bro, were you the twerp that snagged my hat?
Yeah, but
the little shit that took my hat.
took my damn hat. I'm getting it back.
Oh my gosh.
But
yeah,
that scene and okay, minor appearances. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but sometimes there's ghosts in the background of different scenes throughout the entire show.
Yes, I was gonna bring that up. Oh man,
they kind of just like appear in the background, and you notice them. Sometimes you notice them only until the last minute, and then it cuts away, and then it cuts back, and you're like, oh, they're gone, and it adds another level of attention to the scenes when it really shouldn't be there, and that's what I like a lot about the show.
Have you seen that video where there's like there's a video of this guy that points out every single ghost that's hidden in the frame in the entire series.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I didn't. You know, I didn't see that
Send
one. I
me
should
that link.
It's a little creepy because there's like it's sometimes creepy how obvious it should be to see them, and they're just not even there. Because there's like the one that really got me. I didn't see any ghosts in the background when I saw the series, and then I saw this video. I'm like, oh, but there was apparently one when Theo finds the ladder to the basement.
I noticed that one.
I know. Yeah, there's two. There's two in that scene because there's one when she's like moving the washer. It looks like it's the shadow of the side of the frame, but it's actually a long hand, and there's a spindly finger there.
Ugh.
And then there's another one when she opens the hatch. His freaking face.
Yeah, it's
in
just
between
down there.
Two of the.
Okay, that one I did see. That one freaked me out. I thought I was seeing things at first. I was like, I'm seeing something, and then it wasn't there, and I'm like, I'm not seeing things. It was actually there.
Yeah. But thank you for bringing that up with the music. I like that when movies don't rely on music to alleviate tension, because there is horror in silence. And I think they did that really well with this series.
Well, I mean, besides, so I mean, in terms of music, the score is actually really good.
I should probably branch this into basically comments about anything production related you thought was good.
Okay.
We need another hour.
I'm gonna branch this.
Actually, wait, I do want to mention one ghost in the background that I really liked that I didn't notice. It was in episode 6 when they're all inside for like the funeral meeting and there's a storm raging outside and it goes in between past and present with the storm, which I thought was really good. And we'll talk about that in the production part because that's good. But I didn't notice that Nell was actually in like the very background of everyone when they're speaking, like until the very last second. Like the dad walks out of frame and you see the camera move and you're like, what? She's there the entire time and I didn't notice. What? And you know something's up. But okay, well let's move on to production because there's so much that we could talk about. But
we need another hour for production.
Exactly.
We need like. This needs to be a 5 hour.
The haunting of 5 hours.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Well, the house. What I was because after watching the series, I went on like a spree of watching production videos. There was something I didn't know was that because of episode 6, where they had all those long shots and they were connecting the house to the funeral parlor. They literally built the whole house inside the set as well as the funeral parlor.
Oh wow.
And they connected those sets. So it was just a massive set and you could walk through the entire house. Like they built every bit of it.
I need to walk through this house.
Right. and the exterior was actually like an actual house that they found, but they, so like the exterior and the interior were two different things, but they built the entirety of the interior, so none of it is, it's not, it's like
walls are missing, it's not like on a sound,
like it's a real
traditional
house.
Set.
It's like they built everything on the soundstage, which is so much more dedication than you would normally see on something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the Insider video actually explaining that whole 16-minute shot. That was a really good video.
Yeah.
Like the whole process behind that.
And they practiced it like a play.
Oh my god, the amount of staging and rehearsals and the amount of rehearsals and like intricate like setups. Again, like the camera movements and the cinematography is really well done. Like in this entire show, like especially in that long take. Like even they had to move the statues to like make the statues turn, like facing different ways, which I thought was a cool detail.
That was nice.
But very, 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 very hard to do, especially for 16 minutes. Like that's pretty difficult.
Well, and I'm sure it was interesting for the actors to be able to, like, I would love that as an actor to really get involved in the scene, where it's, because there's kind of like there's pros and cons to acting on stage and acting on television.
Yeah.
Because when you're acting on stage, there's the kind of fulfillment of it's all live, so everything you just have to do it in one take and you just keep going no matter what. And then with filming, everything is very planned. So when it comes to shots like this, it's cool because it's almost like the best of both worlds. And it allows, I think, the actors to really get into the scene, which I think they did. And they did a fantastic job with that. Freaking kid actors, dear God.
Oh wow, they were really good. The kid actors were really, really good. Like I was surprised at how good they were. Like, because I've seen bad films where kid actors.
I mentioned it in an episode before. I forget which episode it was, where I said that the child actors were great because it wasn't like that they picked the kid actors because of their acting ability, not because they're like, yes, you look like that person, and you can. If I feed you a line, you're just gonna say it, as what traditional. Like if you look at like movies from the 90s or the early 2000s even, and they have kid actors in it, it looks like the kid is just being fed a line that they have to say, as opposed to these kids who actually learned and acted in it, so.
The casting was really good. I mean,
absolutely
really good casting. I mean, I've heard people talk about the differences between Henry Thomas and Timothy Hutton, because Timothy Hutton plays the older version of Hugh. They look very similar. Like their eyes are similar. Like I could totally see like Timothy Hutton being an older version of Henry Thomas's Hugh Crane.
Yeah.
And
I think Henry Thomas had to wear contacts in order for their eyes to be the same color.
Yeah, one thing I will say though, his eyes were a little creepy at times. Like I thought for one second that like eventually the dad was going to be revealed to be some supernatural guy, because sometimes his eyes really pop out. But then I realized like, oh, he's fine.
I think Vanya eyes.
I think that played well with what I brought up earlier, where it's like, oh, the dad's the bad guy, especially like if you look at him with the contacts and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, he's definitely because his eyes didn't, it was interesting.
It was a little off.
But
yeah,
I mean,
a wee bit off-putting,
The casting is just it's just great, especially like the kid actors. Like they did a really good. Like it's like Stranger Things. It Chapter 2 like type casting, like that good of like a resemblance to like older and younger.
Definitely.
Especially from like the girls' side, because they look like, I think it's let me see. I have the cast members' names here because I cannot remember them for the life of me. There's so many.
Right.
It's young. I think it's young Shirley with older Shirley and
oh my God.
Young Theo with older Theo. They have a really close resemblance. Like I was like,
it's cool because Lulu Wilson, because Lulu Wilson's the young Shirley and Elizabeth Reeser is Shirley. But they in Ouija, Origin of Evil, Elizabeth Reeser played the mom and Lulu Wilson played her daughter. So there was already.
I gotta see Ouija. I gotta look into more of. Mr. Flanagan's filmography.
which is cool because he does what a lot of directors do, where they have like the same cast, which makes sense because it's like that they can give you what you want. And I like that. It's cool because I'm really glad that Henry Thomas is like. He is still in it. He's still in acting, because you see so many times when, if they start out as kid actors, they don't make that transition.
Right.
And I think Henry Thomas, I'm so glad that he did, because he's phenomenal.
Yeah, Henry Thomas is great, and plus, like, I really like that whole idea of collaboration with Mike Flanagan. He does that, like I really like that he sticks with his crew members and his actors. Like, I've only seen Absentia and Hush from him. Like, I haven't seen the other ones, and I'm pretty sure, like, he collabs with a lot of, like, the actors in this show.
Yeah, definitely.
Gerald's Game is another one I have to check out, which is apparently very good. It's on Netflix, too. But,
It's got Carla Guino.
I really like that he kept, like, his team for this. Like, he has, like, his composers who do a really good job. His cinematographer who worked him with on a couple other films. Like, I really like that idea of collaboration.
Yeah. Same. I love that he had. I'm sorry, I don't mean to, like. If you guys have Megan and Tessa, and if you have
it's fine.
anything that you want to bring up, please interrupt. But yeah, the cinematography. I was watching a video about him and how he, like, put a film on the lens to make everything sometimes look dreamy. Whenever they're in a.
I noticed that.
It was like some sort of sleeve that it made everything look just a little bit unreal, or have that dreamy vibe.
That bloom effect was actually really well done.
Definitely. So
yeah,
I love that.
Very misty quality to it.
Yeah. We have to give props again to Mike Flanagan, because he freaking wrote, directed, and edited most of the series.
Yeah.
Like, that
Mike
is
effing
commitment.
Flanagan.
On a professional level, that's nuts.
That's a lot
That
to
is
go in.
absolutely nuts.
But it also shows you how good of how good of a filmmaker he is, because he has a lot of control over what he does. Because usually a picture can get lost in the edits. Like, there's a lot of times where that's happened. One prime example being Quantum of Solace, that James Bond movie. The editing is very choppy, and it's very hard to follow, and it could have been done a lot better. I'm not saying that the director of that movie was a good editor, but it can get mixed up. And with Mike Flanagan, he has complete control over the technical, directorial, and literal aspects of what he works on.
Right.
And that gives him a lot of control. Yeah, he gives him. It gives him a lot of control over what he does, and I think that's one of the reasons why he's such a good horror director and a director in general, because he has that privilege of being able to look over everything.
Yeah.
And
he can. He has his.
He like knows exactly what he's looking for too, so he's not gonna, like, do a different angle when he's not going to use it, so everything's very intentional.
I'm sure that's so refreshing as a crew as well, because you're like, okay,
thank God.
Or it can be a nightmare.
That's true, it can, because there's a difference, because sometimes there is a too controlling, or too being too, but I mean, I think it's one thing when they're too controlling, and it's another thing when it's like, listen, I have this. I think it's when you have a vision and you can effectively communicate it. You can be like, "This is what I think it should be.
Fincher.
This is why." Like, this is why.
Yeah.
And to have everyone be on the same page, because I think people. Yeah, and there are some people that can be total divas about it, but I don't think Mike Flanagan is one of them. And I think he.
He's great.
Had a vision, and he can. He's like, this is I think this can work, and this is how I think it's going to work, and people like that. I think people like this guy is confident in what he's doing. I trust him. I trust that he's gonna, I trust his enthusiasm.
Yeah,
that means he's passionate. About it.
I've seen him directing like on set too. In that same Insider video, I see him like talking with the child actors. He's like, I know it's hard, man. I know this is a hard scene, but we gotta do it, like, for this. Can you do it? Like, high five. And he's, like, super cool about it. And that's really good. Like, what you were talking about, like, having enthusiasm, but at, like, the same time, like, having that other feeling that's, like, composed. It's a great combination. It's an important confidence was the word. It's an important quality to have when you're on set. Because some directors are like, okay, this camera starts, you did it wrong? Oh, come on.
Right.
That guy isn't like that. He's very
personal.
composed and very professional about it.
Yeah, definitely. If there's nothing else about the production aspect of it, is there, Megan? Do you have
Hold the phone.
Holding the horses.
I can gush over the cinematography about this entire thing. I can gush about the long, sustained shots that they did for hours. I want to give props to the set designer.
Yes.
Very
who
good.
Absolutely.
Not only had to build an entire mansion, basically, so that they can do those succinct shots, but also, you know, giving it the detail that it needed, the old peeling wallpaper, the, you know, like,
very
it could
good
just as
design,
easily,
That's very
with
accurate.
big spaces, I think it's easy to not put things or fill the room up way too much, you know? And people won't notice, but in this case, this person's like, I need to have very specific details here, and here, you know? The books need to be older, the wallpaper needs to be peeled up, you know? It's like... It was absolutely beautiful, and I want to give props to them. I also want to give props to the costume designer. It's like it's very subtle, and it mainly focuses on when the kids are younger, but it also mainly focuses for me on the mother. You know, the costume designs in this are really, really great. I think they're fitting for each of the characters, but specifically for like the mom in general. Like she's seen in only like a few outfits. You know what I mean?
But her costume like kind of like goes like as the show progresses, she gets into more of like a haunting like gown rather than just like the shorts she's in when she arrives. She's like, hey, I'm a normal mom.
She goes from like shorts and t-shirts to all of a sudden, she's wearing this kind of like robe that's flowy and seems elegant and pretty, and then at the very end she's wearing this deep red dress, and it's the attention to detail on her was really, really great. So I want to give props to the set and the costume designer for all the little details they had to do.
That was pretty difficult. I mean, that's a good one. I have one tiny one, which is
go for
it's it is a tiny one. It's the Newton brothers who did the score. Like I think the music for this is actually really good. Like it goes to show that when it doesn't have to be like a big orchestral thing. I really like the like the entire like piano melody that plays out like in important scenes. Like I found like when I was hanging up my laundry today, I found myself like whistling it for some weird reason, like on repeat. I was like, okay, stop it, dude. What the hell?
I learned how to play it on the piano because I was so into it.
And the
yeah, man. I mean, the intro is phenomenal.
Oh, the intro's amazing. I love the intro.
That really sets up the tone.
It's like really, really well done. And then it goes into like this deep, like dark, like and like in the end, and it's actually a bop. It's one of the few horror intros that I'd call a bop.
Yeah,
we're talking about best songs on the Viewers Club. Put the intro for Hill House.
Phineas and Ferb. The best song in Phineas and Ferb is the intro to Haunting of Hill House.
The best song.
The best song. But that score is really well used. I really like that piano, especially at the end when Steven's like walking out and you just hear it for like the last time, and you see like all like these lost souls behind them, and it takes that little like mysterious, because it goes like da 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 da. Like it goes like into like this weird like mysterious path to like the melody that I really liked. I really enjoyed the score. I thought it was great.
Absolutely, it's haunting. Yeah,
haunting of Hill House.
So this is going to be the last question, because it kind of ties in with like everything. If you could, I know it's difficult, which episode do you think is your absolute favorite? And this is where we can also talk about our thoughts on the ending.
Amazing. Awesome.
I'll just go first and get it out of the way. I loved, it's got to be episode 5, where everything came together for me. That was had everything with bent neck lady, had everything I could have wanted.
I thought you were getting up there. And you're just like,
done. Drop some.
No, I'm leaving. Goodbye. That is it.
I can't remember specific episodes, so I might need some help with that. The episode, and again, it ties back to the mother because she's literally my favorite character. When her story starts to really piece together why she's so absent-minded. Yeah. It's like right you start to see everything from her perspective all of a sudden. It's like why she almost killed her husband in her sleep. Oh, because she was
screaming memes.
I think that whole reveal of why the mother seemed so spacey or so dangerous at times was probably my favorite episode because it explained so much.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, so I think that's why it was my favorite.
Definitely.
Yeah, watching this series, I just binge watched it, so I'm like, I don't even know what episode to see next.
Yeah, it flows very well together. I will give them that. That's it flows really well together.
Yeah,
it does.
But I've got to agree, episode 5 was the big mic drop to everything.
Right, boom, horror.
Do I need to say anything else? No. Boom.
Boom. Episode 5, mic drop.
Right.
Destroy. Yeah. Well, this may be okay. So, I really do like episode 5. I really do. But it's a tie for me. It's a tie between episode 5 and episode 8. Episode 8 is when Luke goes missing. And they're looking for Luke. And the son and the dad have a really nice conversation in the car that was really well written and really compelling. I was really emotionally invested in that conversation. It really took me away. I was like, oh my god, this is this is amazing. This is brilliant writing, and it's a very good argument scene. And then, like you said, there's the whole review of reveal that there was no clock guy. There was no guy. I took that clock in. There was that whole thing, and I thought that was really well done. And it's one of my favorite episodes. And also, I will say this: episode 1's really good too. In terms of introducing all the characters and stuff like that, you get a pretty good idea in episode 1. Most shows, sometimes they don't do such a great job. In terms of introducing every
at first.
All the elements.
Then sometimes they're like, well, I gotta introduce other characters in the next episode now.
Meet this guy. Credits. And then, it's in the next episode, you meet the guy in the first 15 minutes. It's, everything's packaged together nice and neatly. But episode 5 it's what got me on the train. It's what made me watch, for the next few nights, it just made me watch episodes, in a row. Just go this. It just got me so invested. I mean, I really because it's a lot. I like it a lot because it tells the backstory of probably the most important part of the show, which is Nell and her whole story. Yeah. Because it starts off with Nell's death, and everybody's like, okay, well, Nell died. That's super sad. Oh. And you see Nell's life.
F in the chat for Nell.
Yeah. You see Nell's life, and you I really liked it because Nell basically, her life story, she's so happy in the first 15 to 20 minutes, and then you see the tragedy of what that happened, and you get a revelation oh my god, that happened? Okay, that's gonna damage someone a lot. And you see how she interacts with her family members and how she becomes increasingly unhinged. And it's a nice parallel to her and her mom, how she's the one who basically was the first one to join her. I really liked episode 5 because it showed that backstory of the core part of the show and what she went through. And then, of course, the big twist that happened. And it really was a good episode. I was gonna ask you guys, what did you guys think was the worst episode, the most boring one, if there even is one?
Well, That's funny that you mentioned that, because originally I would have said episode 8. Because that's
your taste is trash, dude.
It,
episode 8 is just not the way.
when I first watched it, I thought that episode 7 and episode 8 were the weakest episodes, because I thought that there is a cool pattern of, okay, first 5 episodes each focuses on like a specific sibling, and then the 6th I'm like, that's the whole family, and then I guess 7 was more like the dad, that kind of focused on the dad a bit, and then 9 was the mom, and 10 was like the finale. So when I first watched it, I felt like 8 was, for lack of a better word, the Two Towers of the series, which I love the Two Towers. That's like, but
I will eventually understand that reference.
Okay. It felt like it was a necessary episode that needed to happen, but this is what I like. Originally, I was like, it was necessary, but it felt like filler. But now looking back, I don't know if I could find a weak episode, because I realized like every single scene advanced the plot. Mm-hmm. There didn't feel like filler. It felt like everything was intentional and everything was moving in a specific direction. So I don't know if I could find a specific episode, but original me would have said those, because it was it felt like, it was more like it was a general, like, here's where the family's at, here's them getting to the house. Mm-hmm. But now I would say I don't know if I could think of one.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's the ending, which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Right.
That's a lot of people were divided on it. I was actually surprised about it.
Yeah.
I mean, Megan, I've seen that has expressed distaste in how it ended.
Yeah. Well, so if that's your weakest one, Tessa, what's yours? Because then we'll use Megan's as a branch into the.
Thank you.
That's funny. So, yeah, like, starting to watch the episodes, like, I was interested. I'm like, okay, I like to see where this is going. Episode 5 happened, and I was like, okay, everything that's been happening is for a reason, right. So now I'm invested. And so, like, yeah, there were, like, some drier moments, throughout the next episodes, but I knew, like, everything was, like, adding up, and it would all be, like, like, explained, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I get what you mean.
Yeah. I think they did really good with the writing. And...
I don't think it's an entire episode that is bad or boring. I think it's just moments that seem really dry.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they all equal to something important later on. But
they're
like
few
in
and
the
far
moment,
between. I mean, they're not.
Yeah, they're not consistent. It's just some small little bits where you're just like, okay, can we just move on? But then you get to another. Then you get to another episode and you realize, okay, yeah, that was an important thing we had to go through. So.
Exactly.
If you were to ask me, like, during an individual episode, I could probably give you those moments, but then after seeing it as a whole, it just is like, it all makes sense. So they're all great.
Yeah. Epic. Yeah. So, as far as ending-wise, I know that we are semi-divided, but I guess let's start. Okay, so Megan, you explained it in the beginning.
Yes. So,
and then
I really enjoyed this series. The beginning of it had such an impactful opener, It had like a huge punch, and then the ending of it, I don't know why, because it didn't like it. I think it might have to be because I was expecting it to go in a more tragic end. Like, it's already tragic enough as it is, But at the same time, it still had that, like, silver lining in it. And you'd think that for a house that caused so much tragedy, it wouldn't give you that happy ending. You know what I mean? So, like, there's the whole, the housekeepers, the land
Dudleys.
Yeah, the Dudleys. They
the
were
Dudleys. Not from Harry Potter, though.
No. So
yeah.
they had like an extremely tragic end where their daughter is now trapped inside the house, and then at the very end the wife is dying, and they make it just in time for her to be there for all of their babies, like her and her family. It's like, that is a genuinely sweet moment, but you're trying to tell me that this house is like toxic and people shouldn't live in it, you know. At the same time you're like, it has a good quality to it. It was like, I felt like my signals were very wish-washy. I understand where they were going for it, but it kind of took away the impact of, this is a dangerous house.
And
then to have several moments where family is reunited and it's all better, you know. And then the thought crossed my mind that when these siblings are about to die, they could just go to the Hill House and be with the rest of their family. And it's like, that's super sweet. Like, there's no denying comforting. That. But I think it also took away the punch of what the terrifying aspect of the house was, you know. And I think that's why I didn't like the ending. You have this huge build up to this house is dangerous, nobody should ever be there, but at the same time it's like I don't know, it just I think that's what really got me. Yeah.
I get your POV there. I mean, okay, is it okay? Can I like answer to that, or
yeah?
Is my floor open?
Objection.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there because it definitely lessens the impact. It makes it a lot more positive than negative, and I found that to be a bit of an issue. That's one of the tiny nitpicks that I have, is that. But it's also not a nitpick at the same time, and I'll explain why. It's because, okay, well, the sacrifice of the dad was that was really important, and that happened. But you also have to you have to keep in mind that how outside of the house, how the people that die inside the house are represented outside of the house, because. If the dad really goes there, like, to die, and if the other family members go there to die, like, what makes sense is that, okay, so if the dad comes, I don't know, and visits his grandchildren in the future or something, is there, like, a possibility that there'll be mixed messages? Like, he'll come back as, like, a rotting corpse and scare the living hell out of them when he's actually trying to say, hey, what's up? There's this really cool house. You want to come? Like, that could totally happen, and that could be seen as a negative. And it could also be seen as a negative that the house is actually just tricking the family and just trapping them, like, their souls forever inside the house. Like, that's one way you could look at it. But I mean, the whole positive, like, transformation, I mean, I didn't really find that, like, not, like, a bad thing, but I just... I thought it was a nice way to wrap it up and just end it off, and I was actually kind of satisfied with it, because most ghost stories, like, they usually end with, like, and then the house ate them and they died. Like, it's like like, that didn't happen this time around, and I really liked that ending. And I also liked the final line. It's like, whoever walks inside the house, like, they walk together. Like, the whole aspect of like the family, like, being, like, in that house and overcoming, like, the negative nature, because if you think about it, the past family in the house was, like, super, like, they were, like, super, like, contrasting each other, and, like, they were just they're just a weird bunch. All right, they didn't get along well. This family has a love like connecting them, and they have, like, people who help them and stuff like that, and you can see that the souls or the monsters in the house are, like, degrading, like, they have, like, their faces, like, falling off and stuff like that. And for the Cranes, they're young and healthy, like, they go back there and they're young and good because they've got that mutual love between them, and that's what makes, like, their not life eternal, but, like, their love eternal. I don't want to sound cheesy, but that's kind of what it's about.
No, I mean, hey, Sometimes cheesy is true.
Sometimes cheese is true. Cheesy is true. Cheese is true.
Cheese is the realest thing in the world.
Cheese is true.
Yeah.
But
I
thought that was really nice, and how they overcome, like, the toxic nature of another family and bring their positive nature in. I thought that was a nice way to tie it up and send it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Tessa?
I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. I totally agree.
Now.
Swear to me.
Where's Rachel?
I don't know. I can totally see, like, Megan's point. I almost feel like Hill House is also, like, a character of its own. And
yes,
there's, like,
absolutely.
Monster House.
I guess, an arc to it. And, yeah, what James was saying about the family, like, being connected by love and, like, the way that they, in the end, like, addressed it. And, I don't know. I mean,
It's
an interesting choice.
I feel like there's good and bad in it as well, but that in itself is reflective of life. Because there's a lot there's a lot you can take away from it. The ending in general. And I totally agree with all your points. Yeah. The when I first watched, I think my only, like, tiny wee nitpick is I wish there was a I think in the beginning I felt more like how Megan does, and then I watched, like, a bunch of people reacting to it, and then, like, I heard, other theory, and then I watched videos of behind the scenes, and it made me look at the story in a different way. And I and it, it made me think about it differently, because I remembered I think, but still the only, I guess, nitpick I would make is I wish there was a moment, a transitional moment, where we actually see Olivia know that she's going to go back to the house, if that makes any sense. Because I remembered watching it, and she was, like, on her way. She was leaving because she knew that, okay, I don't feel well here. I'm gonna go. And she leaves.
Yeah.
And then, like, the next scene that we see her, she's in the hotel room, and she's, blank, which was horrifying in itself.
Yeah, it was actually.
But I wish. But, that was, creepy in itself. I think it took me by surprise, because I was like, oh, okay, I guess she's staying. Okay, I guess she's crazy now. And
wow.
I guess I wish there was, like, in the car or something.
Yeah, a scene where she kind of just goes like,
Like she sees her kids one more time, or she sees Poppy, and and
Poppy's like, get back here now. You're not going away. We have to find the tall man's hat.
Something that solidified her craziness.
It's weird, because I actually really liked it. The whole take by surprise thing. It's like, oh, she's still here. Good. The story was ending. But I also think it was stated in more of, like, the subtle cues from previous things that we had seen. Because wasn't it, like, before that we were figuring out that, we saw Mom that night. She was there, She didn't go off to our aunt's house. I think it was just more...
No, she didn't.
Subtle, rather than...
Yeah, right. Well, and I think that was more in the line of predictability, like you were saying. Like, I figured, okay, so she was at the house. She tried to kill... Like, I knew that that's where they were going with it. But I was waiting... I think I was waiting for the moment that we saw why she did... And then I felt kind of I feel like we know why she did, but I thought there was going to be one thing more that led to it, and then I was like, oh, okay, I guess there's not. I guess, that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's really no loose ends here at all.
No.
It's a really good just series. Like, it goes by, absolutely. And like Tessa was saying, like, it goes by, like, so fast. Like, there's if you binge watch it, like you're not really counting the episodes. It kind of just goes.
No.
Especially if Netflix like
a long
skips the
movie.
credits and stuff like that, you can easily immerse yourself into the story and get lost for like 5 hours and realize like, oh crap, I'm actually watching a lot.
Oh, I missed work. Oh well.
There's
Next
stuff
episode.
about original shows that do it so much better than feature films. And don't get me wrong, I love horror films as much as the next guy, but sometimes when you translate that into a series, it actually comes out a lot better.
Sometimes you need more to develop before you can.
It's not like the
definitely.
the 1999 The Haunting, which we're not going to talk about.
We won't talk about.
Which is horrible.
What was the, what was the name of the keepers? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The what?
The keepers. The housekeepers.
Oh, the Dudleys, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
The Dudleys.
yeah.
Okay, I'm kind of curious as to what happened to them and how much did they know? Because they said that they
they're mysterious
never
characters
lived
for
in the
sure.
house because I think there's a reason for that.
They never lived in the house because they never stayed at the house after dark.
It's scared
because they
understandably
because the wife was like kind of losing it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then she started staying home after dark and she started feeling better. So they knew something was up with the house. I just don't think they knew exactly what was up with it.
Yeah. I knew it was not good vibes. So they were like, let's just not.
Yeah, we're just not gonna deal with it, but we still need to make our hard-earned cold cash. So we gotta keep cleaning there. But I really did like the I really like the husband's monologue where he describes like what happens like one time like that actually like chilled me. Like some of the characters in this series, I will say this real quick, is that they have monologues that like describe events, and them telling the story is actually a lot more scarier than if you were to see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
it is.
One specific example that really like set that mini trend inside the show was when, and if you guys remember, it was in episode 1 or 2, I think, when hold on, let me look at the character's name. Shirley was talking to like a little boy, and he was saying like, oh, I don't want to go to grandma's funeral, casket opening or whatever like that. I don't want to see that because I see her every night. And he says like, she stared at me so much, her eyes started hurting or something, like because of her stare or something. Like he said something really creepy having to do with his dead grandmother staring him down, and I got chills. I was like, oh, okay. Oh no,
Hi, Grandma.
that's terrible. But the housekeepers, I mean, they played a good part, I guess. They had a nice conclusion too. I mean, the old guy kind of just got his wife there. He's like, "We made it, hun. We made it." She's like, "Thank you," and she just kind of like turns into like the young, vibrant, whatever. But I think those were vague characters, but they were cool characters.
Yeah,
they had good conclusions all around, and I liked it much more and was on the idea that there were no loose ends when I like rewatched it. I was like, okay.
Yes. Perfect. In a little bow.
If you guys don't have, do you guys have any last thoughts, last comments before the big question of one or done?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we've said everything there. Oh, I will say this one thing though. It's not really a question. It's more of like, remember when in that one funeral episode when like I think it was Hugh who arrives at like the guest like funeral home or that part of the house. Yeah. And Shirley's husband like offers him something to drink or something, and like I think it's Theo who says like he turns into a waiter when he's under like emotional stress or something.
Oh, that was the funniest thing ever.
I just thought about that throughout the rest of the series. Like whenever like characters in stress, like in any scene, he just pops out of nowhere and says, "Hey, can I offer you guys a drink? Are you stressed out?
You guys want to eat? You guys need a drink?"
Right. I had that.
Give me
with,
something to do.
Like
on the
Shirley's husband saves them. Like he just comes out of nowhere in the end scene. He's like, "Hey, can I offer you guys a drink or something?" Like you guys feeling stressed out.
I was feeling a bit.
But that was fun.
I had that with
good jokes, good humor in this movie, in this series too.
Mm-hmm. I had that with when Steve was like, Theo's essentially a clenched fist with hair. Yep. That's true.
That was a good one.
That was great. That made me laugh out loud. Yeah, I think I do have one final comment, and it was that I thought the writing, horror-wise, I thought it was like something on an extra level of why I thought it was so good. It felt like I was watching a Stephen King novel unfold, which I thought was even funnier that he's directing Dr. Sleep.
And Gerald's Game.
And Gerald's Game. Like, I thought that was funny. And when you were talking about those little monologues that were almost scarier just hearing them, those were the ones that made me think of Stephen King, because he has a lot of those in his books where he has people describing stuff that happened, and then you have the chill of, oh, shit. And so I thought it was funny, because I remember distinctly thinking that, going, this reminds me of Stephen King. And then, like, he's adapted well, a lot of Stephen King stuff. But yeah, that's, I think, all right, big question, one or done. I'm just gonna answer first. I won. I'm one. I'm sealed. I really want to see it, because I'm interested, it's supposed to be an anthology series, so I'm interested in seeing what they do with the turning of the screw.
Finally a good adaptation. That. Finally. Let's hope and pray that we finally get a good adaptation of that story, because it's a very good story.
Yes. Please. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Mike Flanagan does with it, because I think he does a lot of really cool stuff with how a story unfolds. So I'm looking forward to see what he does with that. All of you, one or done. Megan, one or done.
I think I'm a maybe.
You're a maybe.
I don't want to
season one or maybe.
Season one or maybe. I'm definitely not done watching the series. I don't think there's going to be like I'm done watching it, but I don't think like when the next anthology comes out for it, I'm going to jump on that train real quick. Where it's like, oh, it's here. Let's watch it now. You know. So it's a maybe. It won me over, but it's like, when am I going to watch it is the question.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Well, it's a 1 for me. Yeah.
So just to get the terminology right, 1 is meaning I want a second season, I want to see it more, and done is mean I'm done with the show and I don't want to see it. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of there being a second season, but not in an anthology style, like the continuation of the Crane family, I'm done. I think that story's wrapped up. I don't want to see any more of that.
No,
if they continue that,
don't you dare hit me with another Crane.
I'll give it a look, but it's just if they make a sequel to that, like that's not. It's just gonna. I just hate it when they milk stuff like that, and.
He said that we're done with the Crane family.
Oh, thank goodness!
All
right, well,
it's an anthology.
Of course, he said that. Why would I doubt him saying like?
Why would I doubt the God Flanagan?
God Flanagan, but yeah, it's season 1 for me, because I mean it's an absolute win. I really want to see what they do with the second season, especially a good adaptation of The Turning of the Screw. I really want to see a good adaptation of that. The Haunting of Bly Manor is apparently what it's called.
Yeah.
Apparently it has some of the same actors too. Yeah. Like some of the same actors. Yes. Let me see. I think it's like the guy who plays Luke, the guy who plays now Kate Siegel obviously is going to be in it.
Yeah.
Henry Thomas too is going to be in it. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
I may or may not be in love with Victoria Pedretti. So that's slightly more bias for me. I
remember seeing her somewhere. She looked very familiar. But then
she's in You.
She's in there she is.
Yeah,
I remember.
She's this second season of You.
Yeah, it's season 1. It's an absolute win. I really want to see more. And
4 for 4 again. We need to start watching bad TV shows.
We do. We need to.
I've got a few.
Awesome. Well, James, Frickin' thank you so much for joining us on this review. It was so awesome to have your input on this.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure to come on and talk about this amazing show with you guys. This is such a good podcast. I love it. I've listened to this while I'm editing my podcast even, so.
Oh, cool. Thank you so much, man.
Listen to James and the Frames. It's great.
Listen to James and the Frame. Listen to it. If you don't, we'll find you and
I will unleash the curse of the haunting of Hill House.
I
will
will really
unleash that
disappointed
curse
in you.
upon your person, not upon your
It's
house.
like that.
Upon your person.
Upon your person.
It's like that. It's like that, like Vine where the guy loses in a video game and he gets so upset and he's like, "Oh, I hate you. I hope your whole family has a really nice Christmas." Like he realizes, like. He's angry, but then he realizes he doesn't want to actually threaten anybody. Like, that's a good analogy. Epic. All right, well, thank you so much, James, and thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed our conversation about The Haunting of Hill House, Season 1. I have been Lucas.
I was Megan.
I was Tess.
I once was James.
And now we're all dead. Thank you so much for watching. And have a good rest of your day.
I was always there.
We were always there. Don't go. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yay!